What's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here. This is going to be another episode for Classic Albums Revisited, which is a segment that I review one of my favourite albums of all time. And as you can see from the title, it is going to be on the number 25 for this video. And speaking of the number 25, the album that I'm going to be reviewing is celebrating its 25th anniversary in October this year. So what could be a perfect album to celebrate it than for me to review none other than What's the Story Morning Glory by Oasis. What's the Story Morning Glory is the band's second studio album. It is the follow-up to the critically successful and acclaimed album of Definitely Maybe in 1994. This was out on the 2nd of October 1995, surprisingly on the same day as Iron Maiden's The X Factor. This was out on the Creation Records label. It was recorded inside Rockfield Studios in Wales, with Owen Morris being the main producer, whom he later claimed this time working with the band as his most happy and creative time in a recording studio. Besides Noel Gallagher's co-production, he was making more variety into the sound of this album than the previous album of Definitely Maybe. He was incorporating the sounds with more string arrangements, bigger choruses, and some more variation to make the sound of Oasis dominating and different than the first record. It released 6 singles, Some Might Say on the 24th of April, Roll With It on the 14th of August, Morning Glory on the 18th of September, Wonderwall on the 30th of October, Don't Look Back in Anger on the 19th of February, and Champagne Supernova on the 13th of May. Upon release, the album received mixed reviews. Many critics criticized the songwriting and the production points, and calling it an inferior album to Definitely Maybe. It went up to number 1 on the UK Albums Chart and at number 4 on the US Billboard 200. In 1996, it won Best British Album at the Brit Awards. In many years later, the album has been celebrated as one of the most important and essential albums in the Brit-pop genre and in the 1990s music scene overall. In recent years, the album became the UK's 5th biggest selling album of all time. It became the biggest selling album of the country at the time until Adele's 21 in 2011. What's the Story Morning Glory was the first Oasis album that I remember I've listened to, and it was at the 6th form working on school assignment days, and I was told that they were Beatles inspired. Since that, I have been growing to love the Beatles more and more at that peak. And I remember also that I have bought the Heath and Chemistry album, but then something happened in 2018 where my mind just clicked with me to listen back to Oasis and for me to become an obsessed huge fan. I have reviewed their first album Definitely Maybe last year. Be sure to check that review out if you haven't already. Also, please check out my Stone Roses self-titled album review, because I've reviewed that album in honor of its 30th anniversary at the time. So check out those 2 reviews if you haven't. What's the Story Morning Glory was a record that I have a bit of memories of, and it's not because of the obvious single of Wonderwall, but I did like the tone to the music and the sound of the band, and now that I've revisited the band and played a lot of their stuff, this is to me Oasis at their best peak. This is also the first album to have Alan White on the drums, because Tony McCarroll, the band's original drummer, was fired due to tensions between him and Noel Gallagher. Alan White became the replacement, and he was the band's main drummer until he left the band in close to the mid-2000s. I absolutely think this production is a huge, big sound that I prefer to be very comfortable with. As much as I do love the production on Definitely Maybe, but that album can be very compressed and full of distortion from the over-the-top feedback and gain on tracks like Bring It On Down to Cigarettes and Alcohol, etc. but I still love that record for what it is. The album opens with the track Hello. It is not as a perfect classic opener like Rock and Roll Star, but I really do think with this track as the starter to begin the album, it delivers very well. But it's got a massive sound with the beat on the drums, and I love the melody from Liam's vocals to the track, and I can definitely see that the comments from people say that it is similar to the Gary Glitter track of Hello, Hello, I'm Back Again, when Liam goes, hello, hello, it's good to be back towards the end of the track. But it's a very good track to open the album up with pretty much a bang. Roll With It. This is another one of my favourite Oasis tracks, and this was at a time that Oasis had been getting a lot of media attention from the term of the Battle of Brit Pop, alongside with the Blur single Country House, two different singles in this battle, and obviously Blur won that battle. But I feel Roll With It is another excellent track. I love the driving beat and the simplicity of the chords to the attitude of the lyrics, something similar to the self-belief consciousness from Supersonic. Love the instant hook and the catchy parts on the chorus and the simplicity of the guitar solo. It is, to me, one of those standout tracks that I had admired. Besides, some people did give criticisms on the lyricism, which I didn't really see the problem with it, because it is something like Supersonic, but it has a strong delivery and a brilliant selection of the vocal harmonies to the attitude that is providing the track entirely. Wonderwall. This track is for me the most overplayed and the most overrated Oasis track. But with that being said, it is still a great song. A beautiful, soft acoustic strummer on the acoustic guitar with later incorporations of the string arrangements, gentle touchings of the tapping on the drums, and this was lyrically described of an imaginary friend who's going to come and save you from yourself. And as obvious, this song definitely shows of which number one song anyone talks about from the name Oasis. This album's track still sounds beautiful from the repetitive nature on the chord playing, and as well with the lovely singing on the chorus and the melody from the verses. Don't Look Back in Anger. Don't Look Back in Anger is, to me, the stronger track than Wonderwall. Definitely a similarity to the opening of the track of Imagine by John Lennon. But what I love about this track very much, its own progression is great. I love the various selection of the chords to continue this very gentle at first pace, but then explodes into this brilliant anthemic chorus. One of Noel's best vocal performances on any Oasis track. There isn't really much to be said about this track, even though that it is as much of a revolution of a song like Wonderwall, but for me more of the favourite than the previous track. Hey Now. Out of all of these underrated tracks from the repertoire of Oasis, this is one of the top three, and it's really a shame that a lot of people have not been talking about it. I love this song, its own charm and its power, from the drumming to, again, some of Liam's best vocals and the brief solos with the slide on the guitars. It is a wonderful simplicity, and the chorus is, to me, another one of those memorable and catchier moments of material to this album. Then we hear two of these very small excerpts of the track that would later on be known as the Swamp Song. It's basically just a one-off bluesy jam on the entire track with blazing harmonicas. I know that we didn't hear the full song in its entirety at this time until we hear the whole thing on the first compilation of the Master Plan, used to open the sets and shows with the Swan Song before Liam came out on stage. The next single of Some Might Say. Some Might Say is another brilliant song. I love the vocal harmonies between Liam and Noel together on this one. More on the uplifting beat. Great loud chords playing on the background with multi-tracked lead guitar works. Some Might Say is another big standout number on the album. Cast No Shadow. This is another one that is criminally underrated, and it is one of my big high favourites on this album. Like Wonderwall, the acoustic strumming is absolutely lovely, with some pristine, touching notes of the strings that were playing along with the violins. This song is gorgeous. I adore the sound of the vocals to the high falsetto notes from Noel's singing. To me, this is like one of these tracks that deserves a lot of the credit and truly needs to. It's still a great sounding number to follow up the previous tracks. I admire this song for so many reasons. It was so beautiful to hear something this perfectly arranged of any Oasis song. She's Electric. This is to me another one where it's quite psychedelic. Some of the lead guitar work previously, like on Roll With It, can be a bit psychedelic, but this one is like a homage of the Beatles track With a Little Help from My Friends. They did a similarity to the ending of that track and did it on here. One of the vocals, some of the notes Liam sung on this song includes the falsetto, something similar to what George Harrison would do. Again, a very confident, positive tone of a track with a great beat. The title track, Morning Glory, this is a song where lyrically deals about the drug reference on cocaine, and as well as the mentions of Tomorrow Never Knows being an LSD trip drug referenced track. This one is so huge and loud on the distorted guitars that were blazing through the entire track, especially onto the chorus that is as strong and memorable. This does have a powerful delivery from the chord sequences. Another excellent single from the start to the finish. But we cannot finish this review off without talking about, for me, the best Oasis song and my favourite Oasis song of all time, Champagne Supernova. This is a song that defines Oasis. I was looking at some of the notes that when Noel played it to the band, Bonehead was crying because of how beautiful it was. And the song is absolutely beautiful from the melodies, and with one of Liam's very top best vocal performances. It's very psychedelic as well. Does have these various effects all over the place. Features Paul Weller from The Jam doing backing vocals and lead guitar works. It is more than 7 minutes of complete brilliance. Champagne Supernova is the #1 Oasis song that I will never ever get tired of listening to, and it is one of my top 10 songs of all time. And I do not care that I had to feel emotional and cry pretty heavily when Liam played that song in a shorter length when I had seen him live last year in the Birmingham Arena, and it was something to behold. My heart just dropped and I just couldn't help it. That's just how much the song meant the world to me. And as well as other Oasis tracks that have some meaning, Champagne Supernova has been a very common piece of music. Its own identity, its own colours, its own presentation that still remains strong to this day. So there you go, guys. What's the Story Morning Glory by Oasis is definitely one of those albums that I always seek out as one of my favourite albums of the 1990s. And as I said earlier on, my favourite Oasis album for a lot of reasons. To me, Oasis have felt and sounded much stronger as a band when they became focused and progressive as a band, especially for Noel as the songwriter to explore many different ways of lyricism and other sounds of music. Let me know what you think of this album in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.